2 minutes. This is your 2-minute warning that we will begin our meeting in 2 minutes. So please feel free to finish or grab anything extra. Although dishes will be collected, so. Well, my dear brothers and sisters of All Saints, it is 12:45 and it was now time for us to begin our meeting. We will still have hospitality coming around collecting dishes as well as coffee and tea and juices still on the table. So please feel free throughout the meeting. Should you desire more, you are welcome to come forward to those tables for refreshments. I'd now like to call the 2023 annual meeting? The 2023 annual general meeting of the All Saints Parish to order. And I would like us to begin with prayer. So I invite you to take a moment and find that place where you're seated or standing as we find ourselves connected to God, and that we might hear God's presence in and through each of us today. Almighty and ever-living God, source of all wisdom and understanding, be present with those who take counsel at the annual general meeting of the Parish of All Saints, for the renewal and mission of your church. Teach us in all things to seek first your honor and glory. Guide us to perceive what is right, and grant us both the courage to pursue it and the grace to accomplish it. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. I would now like to call forward Nora to offer our land acknowledgement. And before she comes forward to offer it, I just wanted to tell you all that this is a new land acknowledgement. Several months ago, your outreach committee wrestled with this as coming out of one of our educational opportunities, and we have crafted a new land acknowledgement that we present to you today. So Nora, please come forward.
We give thanks to God the Creator for the abundant beauty and diversity of creation upon which all life depends. We acknowledge that we live, pray, and serve on Treaty 1 lands, the traditional home of the Anishinaabe, Cree, and Dakota people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We are grateful for their stewardship and hospitality, which allow us to meet and serve our Creator. We are committed to learning, listening, and supporting Indigenous peoples in the pursuit of justice and equity. Therefore, we will do better, do more, and do our part in our neighborhood of West Broadway.
Thank you, Nora. And I would now like to hand over the mic and the chair of our annual general meeting to Sandy Milas.
Thank you, Father Rob. My first duty here is to appoint Joy Peters as the recording secretary. And I'd like to thank Joy for being willing to do this job. So God and Joy willing, you are now appointed. Thank you. I will then go on to introduction to rules and protocols for the meeting. And the first part is the declarations of membership. Declarations of membership were received from 34 parishioners. That was by mail and email. If you would like to vote but didn't reply to the survey mailed and emailed out in early February, and you are over 16 and attend All Saints, please sign and print your name in the book that is being passed around. Also, if you're new to the congregation this year, or some of your contact information has changed, please fill out one of the forms that Joy has available on the table so that we can keep our records up to date. Thanks. Now we go on to rules for voting. People who could not attend physically have been mailed ballots to be able to vote in advance. No ballots were returned by mail. Under canon law, only those who have declared their eligibility by responding to the survey or signing the book are able to vote. No one is allowed to vote twice or 3 times in the same election. Or 3 times was my addition to the canons. Votes will be taken for resolutions and for electing people to positions. For resolutions, we'll just ask for a show of hands. For electing people to positions, voting will be done by secret ballot. Paper ballots have been handed out. If you don't have one, please get it now. There are also extra pens if you need one. After nomination instructions and names have been read out, you will be invited to mark your ballot for all candidates and hand them in. Gloria Reed and Arlene Merrick have graciously volunteered to count the ballots, but I require a motion to appoint them as tabulators of the ballots. Could I have a motion, please? Thank you, Margaret. And a seconder, Jana? Thank you. Any comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor? Please raise your hands. Thank you. The motion is carried. I would now like to ask Jocelyn to say something regarding those in our congregation who have died since our meeting on March 8, 2023.
These were all important members of this congregation. We miss them dearly. We remember at this moment Kay Brown, Ray Turner, and Phyllis Sampson, who died quite recently, but since the last AGM. Please remember them in your prayers, and if I've missed anybody, please let me know. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jocelyn. And now the next step is the adoption of the minutes of the annual general meeting held last year on March 12, 2023. Please note, by the way, that in the agenda, the date is incorrect. It is March 12, 2023. You have received the minutes of the meeting in your annual report package. Could I have a motion that these minutes be adopted as written? Thank you very much, Lorraine. A seconder? Thank you, Carl. No corrections or errors have been received in advance of this meeting. Are there any corrections or errors that people wish to mention at this time? Silence and no motion are golden. Has everybody had a chance to comment? Can I have a show of hands for adoption of the minutes of March 12, 2023? Thank you. Any opposed? Carried. Now we turn to business arising from the minutes. The members were invited to submit any questions regarding business arising from the minutes in advance by mail or email. No questions or comments have been received. But are there any questions or comments people would like to raise at this time? Seeing, hearing none. We'll move on, but just let me say that we do not want to discourage interest or questions or concerns. So if anybody has a question or a concern about anything going on in the parish, they can always contact Father Rob or any of us in corporation or vestry, and we'll do our best to deal with it. Now we go on to the reception of our many annual general meeting reports. 17 reports have been received and circulated to the members in advance of this meeting. And I would like to thank all of those who wrote reports, and by the deadline, every report was in except mine and Father Rob's. Those reports attest to a huge amount of caring and work that is done by many members of the congregation. The file of reports does not need to be adopted or approved, but just received. We do, though, need an official resolution for the receipt, and that needs to be done before we review the individual reports. So could I ask someone to move that we receive the reports? Thank you, Dietrich. And a seconder? Thank you, Mark. Now, would all those in favor of the reception of these reports at this meeting please raise your hands? Opposed? Let the record show that there is one person opposed. I think there's only one. Carried. The reports were circulated in advance, so you'd have time to read them. And instead of reading them through at this time, we suggest that we simply have the people who were engaged in writing or representing that activity speak to them just informally and briefly if they would wish. So, and then we would invite any questions for any of the people who do stand up to talk about their particular area of activity. So I'll read them one by one and just remind you that we need to go reasonably quickly. The people who are talking about their particular area of activity, if they could stand right beside Joy, and we'll give them a microphone. That way they can be seen on camera, which is important. So I will start now with the incumbents report. Rob, I can just pass you the microphone.
Thank you, Sandy. As you will read in my report, if you have not read it already, the other reports actually capture quite vividly the active work of discipleship here at All Saints, both within the building and outside the building. And so acknowledging that we have done some amazing work, but the job is not over. We still have plenty of work in front of us, and I know that together, when we are bound together as a community, we can accomplish the work that has been set before us. And I am confident that we will continue on the trajectory if we all continue to live out our call to discipleship. And so I entrust the rest of the nitty-gritty details of how we have grown, how we've engaged, and the struggles that still lie ahead are addressed in the various reports that you will find in the annual report filing. But just to say that together, we can continue to do the work of God in and through All Saints.
Thank you, Father Rob. We now move on to the warden's report. And I don't know whether we have anything we really want to say. It was just a very encouraging year. We made so many gains and things got so much richer and so much more fun all throughout the year. And I feel like we've been on this trajectory for a while, and God is blessing All Saints. That's the way I feel. Joe, would you like to say anything?
Sandy wrote a very eloquent report on behalf of the wardens, and I think she captured very clearly the spirit of this congregation as we're moving forward, growing and developing, and the enthusiasm and hope that we find. Gone are the days of wondering how to keep the doors open or how to fill the seats. I'm looking at all the faces here and seeing people that have been with us for many, many years, people that have been with us for a few years, and newcomers, and I love it. We've been here quite a long time, and this is the most exciting time, I think, in the life of this parish. So thank you, Sandy, for your really good report.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Judy, would you care to say it?
I'll just add to Joe's comments that we're just delighted to see all new faces, and I think we're throwing off the COVID effects. We're finally getting over that and feeling more comfortable being here, which is delightful. So glad to see so many of you out today, and we'll keep on going and enjoy the lovely church that we have.
Are there any questions or comments for the wardens? As I say, silence and no movement. Oh, we have a question. Great, thanks, Heather. Are there any other comments or questions? If not, If not, we'll move to Dietrich and the music director's report. Dietrich, do you want to come up, or? I think he's indicating that his report says it all. Are there any questions or comments for Dietrich? I think that, is there another question or comment? Yes.
My question is, do we have an idea of how much more investment we need to put into the organ to get it back to its full useful life? And is that a 10 or 5, 10, 15-year plan? Approximately.
That works. Sure. Here we are. We had some wonderful work done on the console this past year. That's the keyboard part. It was completely gutted. We have not continued work on the pipe. That's the action. We have lots of work left to do on the action. Probably in the neighborhood of $150,000. That's, I think, quite gen. That's when it comes along. I asked. Anyway, that's what we're looking at. So however long it will take us to do that work, that's as long as it takes. It can be done incrementally. And so I would imagine that our next step would be to focus on the Great Division. We did the Swell Division a number of years ago, the Great Division, and that will be a bill in the neighborhood of 70,000. So we need to work up to that. Then we'll have done the significant part. We still have the pedal and another 2 more divisions to go. But those 2 divisions, that's the and what we need to think of is this is sort of we're getting the order going for the next 100 years because we're planning to be around a lot longer than that.
So just as your treasurer, it should be noted that people at times give significant gifts. So already, if you've read your financials, there is a $15,000 one-time person or others contributing to build up a fund so we can attack big projects. Because 70,000 and 75 is a big number, but it's very important to many number of people here. So there is some seed money to make sure things keep happening.
And the beauty is that this is one of the most beautiful, historic, and beautiful sounding organs in Western Canada. We can all be very proud of it.
Just on that, next year in May, our Royal Community College of Organists is hosting a recital. They were looking for the 2 best organs in town to do this. So they want a Baroque instrument and a Romantic instrument like ours. So the Baroque instrument is going to be that one from the Turbo that went in a few years ago, and the other one is going to be all 6.
All right, we will move on to the science person's ministry report, and that is Judy and Lorraine. So I'll pass the baton.
Lorraine's going to come up and join me. We're a pair. You see us when you come in, and you see a lot of the volunteers that we have as you come in the building. It's a very important ministry. It's the face of All Saints, especially for people that don't know the church. Did you want to read that? Sure.
We were excited to be in the science person team. We have 9 regular volunteers and 5 people who graciously help us. We also have 2 new volunteers that we're going to have training with us shortly. So our numbers are increasing, and if anyone feels led to join us, please do. It's a wonderful way to meet our congregation and invite people into God's house. Excuse me. We have something new in the church this year. We have helping again to bring the elements up to the altar. Exciting. We are also setting up a meeting with the Winnipeg Community Police Liaison Officers to bring us up to date on safety for ministering in an inner city church. And in summary, this is a wonderful ministry to serve our Lord, and if you'd like to join us, that would be great.
We would love to have you. Just talk to one, and working in a very important ministry. Thanks, Lori.
Those minutes, it's and hope to hear.
We are quite aware.
Oops. Not only can Father Rob preach, he can also change batteries faster than anybody I've seen. I just wanted to thank Judy and Lorraine and ask if there's any questions for Judy and Lorraine, besides people. Seeing none, I'm going to move on to the Altar Guild report. Margaret, I think, is Margaret up? Oh, there she is. Thanks, Margaret. And I'm going to make a pitch for Altar Guild. Altar Guild needs some people, as does hospitality. So Margaret is handling a huge load with just very few helpers in there. So if anybody wants to pitch in, that would be a wonderful ministry. We now have a Children's Chapel report. And so Joy quietly said to me she had nothing to say. It's all in her report. Any comment, questions for Children's Chapel? John.
Just as one of the parents, you are doing a fantastic job as the other leaders in Pastor Nancy and Sandy and all the parents that volunteered it. This is something we didn't have 3-4 years ago. We had 2 children in the parish, and as we saw today, there was 8. We grew up to like 10. So it's wonderful. It needs energy, so thank you, Joel.
Hello.
I was going to make exactly the same comment. Not that I have children in Children's Chapel, but just the excitement of having those children in our service brings to all of us. Thank you so much for everybody that is organizing and working so hard to look after our children and foster their learning and faith. Thank you to all of you.
Now we move on to hospitality, which we had a wonderful display today of hospitality. My goodness. Margaret. Margaret, would you like to say anything? Again, Margaret and the Van Bentham family are a huge portion of the hospitality in the church, which is so important after the service in particular. So if anybody feels like volunteering to help more in that area, it would be great. Thank you, Margaret and Van Benthams. Gift boxes and cards report.
Just to continue on with what I was speaking about after service this morning, the gift boxes are all organized. The hot cross buns are being hot cross bunned. I think they're all done, ready to go. Father Rob is writing an Easter letter. We are putting in the palm crosses that will be made next Sunday, I think next Sunday, and then we'll be delivering on the 21st, 22nd, something like that, the end of the following week, so everybody has their box before Palm Sunday so they can worship with the cross and so on and so forth. Thank you to Arlene for the cards. I mean, that's just this quiet little ministry that means a lot to people, but so much appreciated. And so these are small, quiet things, but they really keep us connected, especially with folks that can't be here. One thing that didn't seem to get into anybody's report was about last year's picnic. And that's actually something called Parish Life, and we didn't do a report on Parish Life. And I guess that would have been me too, so I apologize for that. The parish picnic, first time crack at it last year, 60 people. We ate a ton of food. We had a blast at St. Vital Park. We had so much fun and a very different, simple together. This year I've already rented both halves of that shelter, so it's on for June 16th. So, looking forward to seeing everybody out there, and we will need a team to help. So, Heather, I will be calling you. Thank you.
I just wanted to speak about the cards. We do have some people in our congregation who would like to receive a birthday card, or you've already been part of the congregation and you don't have to get one. You have to let Joy know, and she'll put it on the list and then she lets me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Arlene. I hope everybody could hear that. if you're not getting a birthday card and you would like to have a birthday card, please let Joy in the office know, and you will get on the list for our wonderful card lady. And I have to say, Arlene also quietly makes food for a lot of people who may be in trouble or in the congregation, people who need support. And we thank you for that too, very, very much, Arlene. Outreach. Carl, would you like to say a few words?
Let's see if this works.
I'm going to say no. I think Corey is, if she's here.
So, do you feel...
All I can say, we had a really good year. Okay, we accomplished most of the things we wanted to accomplish. We're in a little bit of transition. We're having a meeting next week, next Saturday, to talk about direction for the coming year, and we can always use more people. Okay, so, and we meet by Zoom or in person once a month. So it's not an onerous task. So if anybody has the inclination to get involved in the life of our community outside the church, please join us. Thank you.
Questions or comments for outreach? Seeing, hearing none, I'll move on to the West Broadway Community Ministry Report, and I believe that's Amanda. And Amanda, if you'd like to say something, do you want to come up to the front so that people who are on camera can see you?
Thanks. My report is very brief. The advisory committee only met once last year, but I will be looking, this is the middle of my third term, and I will be looking for someone next year to take up this ministry. So if you're interested in learning more, it would be a good year to talk to me and learn more about West Broadway.
Thank you, Amanda. Now, West Broadway Community Ministry is part of One Just City, so it's part of a very active support for the West Broadway area. Now we come to PWRDF, or Primates World Relief and Development Fund report. Is Sandy Tankard here? No, she is not. Nancy, can you say a little bit? Not yet. All I can say is this is a really important part of the Anglican Church's international ministry, and Sandy was our faithful representative, bringing things to our attention, issues, concerns, opportunities to give over the past year, and if all goes well with appointments and elections, Nancy Walker will be our new PWRDF representative at the end of this meeting. And from there I go to Property Committee report. John.
Just a comment about the PRWF. It was not in Sandy's report. She didn't ask for the number, but this congregation raised approximately $3,000 that flowed through the diocese to all those wonderful charities and other outreach movements that the PRWF supports.
Thank you, John. Now we move to the Property Committee report. Mark?
As you can see in the reports, I'm not one of those that writes the short reports. But it was reduced down from 8 pages down to 4, so... I've basically what was going on this year or this past year in the church as far as the property committee, so if anybody has any questions.
I think the fact that nobody had a question or a concern and there was only thank yous tells you a lot, Mark, about how well the property is going. Now we come to the special projects report, and that's actually me, so I'll just keep talking here. So along with maintenance of the church, there is also major projects that need to be undertaken in the church over time for significant renovations or restorations. The biggest one of those is the organ, but there are also many others. And in previous years, we had David Wilson and Ken Manswell handling that area. Last May, Ken decided to leave us to join a church that he felt was a little closer to his heart and his upbringing. And Ken, after many years of very generous help in this area, decided to retire from that position. So we are in the process now of looking for a new person to head up special projects. And we are very grateful that Kunli in our congregation has offered to help us at least put together a look at the total priorities of fiscal projects that need to go on in the church, prioritize them, help us figure out the timelines for them, and that will allow us to again have a proper budget for special projects for the coming years. Kunli is an architect and also did exactly this job with his huge Nigerian church before he came to Canada, so I think we are going to be in good hands with him. The one special project that we know of for this year is restoration of some of our beloved stained glass windows. We had Prairie Stained Glass take an evaluation of all the windows, and they have singled out a number that need some repair and restoration. In particular, the two large windows on either side of the chancel in the front, and the Joshua window up behind us here, and Christ the Carpenter all have serious things wrong with them. So if we don't act, those windows are in jeopardy, and that would be a terrible shame. So we have engaged Prairie Stained Glass, and they will be doing that work over this year. So we have set aside $25,000 for that work, and we have just applied to the province for funding for 50% of that cost. So that work will go on, and we will experience some construction as windows are taken down and out of here for fixing and replacement, so that they'll be out for 6 to 8 weeks. Anyway, that was a very long report. I'm sorry. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, sorry, Heather? We don't know on this one yet when we will start. We have a lift coming in on Tuesday. An actual, I don't think it's a scissor, I think it's a bucket lift that will go up there, and the guy from Prairie Stained Glass will go up and detail exactly what needs to be done. And then we'll have a final, this week, yes, but he's just going to look at the window. He's not going to take it down at that point. Any other questions or comments? I'll move us along to the rentals area.
Joy is my biggest help with the rentals because she's the one that does the contracts, signs them up, gets everything prepared for the rentals coming in. We do have interesting rental streams, everything from parking. We have one steady parker outside. We have St. Ben's, of course, who is a renter, even though they feel like a partner. And we have rentals for weddings and for various other choirs, sometimes for a staging ground for a film, because they need places for people to stay warm or whatever. In total, and this is in my report, it was almost $30,000 of income, which is quite significant. So we're grateful for the rentals, but we also need help for hosting weddings. Margaret that's another thing that Margaret's doing, and it's part of hospitality, but she needs a couple of other partners to help her with that. So if anybody's interested, it's kind of a fun job. If anybody's interested, please come and see me or Margaret. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Jocelyn? John. It's still a good number, Jocelyn. I mean, it may not be totally accurate, but it's a good high number. So, and finally, the West Broadway Commons report, and that is me again. Everything is really in the report itself. The one thing that I would like to flag is thanks to Miles Barber, who has agreed to replace David Wilson as one of 3 representatives of All Saints on the West Broadway Commons Joint Venture Management Committee. So thank you, Miles. With that, I'd like to move on to agenda item 11, which is appreciation of past service. And I pass this back to Jocelyn.
Mark McClellan, please come to the front. I should have said report to the office. Mark, this is a very interesting point in your career on vestry. It's been how many years?
It's over 30. I think I've served under 7 ministers.
We haven't kicked him off. He decided he needed a year's break. And it also means that his 6-year term starts again, because typically you have a 6-year term per the canons. So if anybody's staying on for more than 6 years, they need a special, is it a dispensation, an exemption, a dispensation, which I need this year. But Mark, as a small token of our appreciation for all that you've done and all that you will do again when you can come back on vestry. So thank you on behalf of us all. Thank you so much for your service.
Now we go back to the deadly quiet of the procedures of the annual general meeting, and I'll pass the microphone to Father Rob.
It is once again my privilege to appoint Sandy Mielitz as the Rector's Warden for the upcoming year, and so delighted to continue to work with her in this leadership capacity.
Thank you. Now we go on to the ministry discernment team's report and the elections. So just a few introductory comments. The agenda has a list of all the people who have declared themselves willing to stand for positions elected or appointed at the AGM. And I'll break it down into 2 parts. The elected positions first, and then the appointments. And to start, we have a full slate of candidates for 4 positions that need to be elected. The first is People's Warden, and Jocelyn Bartel has agreed to stand for that position. And there is Deputy People's Warden, Judy Palmer, who I must say is the 3 of us enjoy working together so much. I was so glad Judy would stand again. Synod delegates, Lorraine Thistlethwaite, John Van Bentham, and Chris Whitmore. And I should explain that the number of delegates that we have relates to the size of our congregation versus other parishes in the diocese. So we are eligible to have 3 delegates, and that's what we have. At the time when this went out, the substitute synod delegate had not been talked to, so I would invite nominations for the floor for the substitute synod delegate. Jocelyn?
I would like to nominate Mitchell Deuce as our alternate synod delegate.
Thank you. Then I will go on to vestry membership. And first of all, I should mention that vestry includes ex officio members, in other words, members who are not elected directly to vestry, but they are people who also can vote and fully participate. So any of our ordained clergy associated with All Saints, in our case, both Reverend Arthur Clausen and Reverend Barbara Shumsky, and now our deacon, Carl Harrison, plus vestry includes the wardens, the three of us, and it was wardens and deputy wardens, and also the synod delegates. Another person who will be participating in vestry is John Van Bentham. The vestry, at its next meeting, the new vestry, will elect him as treasurer, because treasurers are chosen by the corporation, and the corporation is very happy that John will stand one more time. Then there are positions on vestry which are elected here and now, and they are called members at large, and the members are Joel Ballydawa, Yana Courtney, Mitchell Deuce, Joy Peters, and Margaret Van Bentham. In all, this would provide for a vestry of 12 people plus the clergy. No other nominations have been received for these positions in advance of this meeting. Does anyone at this time have any other individuals that they would like to nominate, or would somebody like to nominate themselves for a particular position? Don't hesitate. If you're keen, we can always use leadership volunteers. Seeing no hands, I would invite each of you in the room to pull out your ballots, mark them, and return them to Gloria and Arlene over at that table. Yes, Barbara. I couldn't hear you. Oh, yes, that's a very good idea. So could I ask, is Joel here? Joel? Yeah. He's still in Uganda. So Yana, Mitchell, Joy, Margaret, and going back, Jocelyn, Judy, Lorraine, John Van Bentham, Chris, and I think that's the total.
Thank you.
I'm not being elected. Yes. Oh, I'm part master. Right. Now, if anybody, has everybody given their ballots in? If they haven't, they can give them to Judy here or to... I'll just leave a minute for this to happen. This is our ballot box. Any other ballots? Oh, there's Bookie. You need to give your ballot in. Any others? All right, it's looking like we finally have corralled most of the ballots.
We got one last one for Louis.
All right, while the ballots are being counted, we'll just proceed on to talk about the appointments. So the appointments are envelope secretary. Jana, thank you so much for doing this once again. Appreciate it. The All Saints representative for West Broadway Community Ministry. Amanda, again, thank you for doing this, and we'll look for a new person for next year or earlier if you can find somebody or we can find somebody. Our financial representative, who is the person from the congregation who sits on the finance committee, which is chaired by Jocelyn and involves John Van Bentham as treasurer, myself and Rob, and the congregation's representative, who is Glory Chisholm Chinda. Glory is a banker extraordinaire. And then finally, PWRDF representative, Nancy, thank you so much for taking this on. It's just great. Again, we'll just let them count ballots and we'll keep going here. And I turn it over to Jocelyn and John for the finance report.
All right. Okay, so we don't need to look at the numbers right now because numbers are just data. What I like to talk about, and we have so many new people that I think it's important to retell our story. Let's retell our health, our financial health. What does that look like? So many of you probably don't remember, well, we used to have a hall. Wise minds and the gifts of people past allowed us to do an amazing project, which was build and develop the property next door. Now, I always, as finance, as your treasurer, like to honor those people that we don't know, people that gave gifts over the last 140 years. And that is why we were able to do what we did. We don't know their names anymore, but it is important that we remember them. And one day, some of us may give similar gifts, and we will remember you in this fashion too, in thanksgiving of what we continue to do. So, we had a project, we had a vision, we had wonderful leaders that said, we can do this. And we did it by depleting our endowment to literally $58,000. It's all we had left. It was a hope and a prayer, and it was a chance. But if we didn't take the chance, we were done. And let me tell you about the general health of not just us, but many Anglican churches in our diocese. It is unhealthy. Parishes are closing. Parishes have hard decisions. They're sharing incumbents. They only have a quarter-time incumbent. They don't have secretaries anymore. They're closing down their mission, their outreach, because they're just trying to find every dollar to stay alive. Now, we're not there anymore, but our story is not finished. There is a lot of work to do. And this is why at the bottom of your report, if you look to page, not page 1, that's my page 1, you're page 29. I wanted to tell the story of, oh, it looks fantastic. We're great. We got 80 grand at the end of the day. No, we didn't. If we actually look at pure cash transactions that are related to this year, we have a bunch of variances that will never repeat themselves. Some of these items actually, had they taken place, would have been done when we were building the building. But as we know, government bureaucracy, it takes time, and they got to sign off on the permits, and they got to do their testing. So a lot of these gifts, such as the Efficiency Manitoba, we should have seen that probably 3 years ago. But all it would have done would have kept our endowment higher. Instead, we're getting it back now. Other one-time gifts that people need to be aware of that altered our financials significantly was we got a wonderful gift by the U of WCRC, that is our 49% partner in the project. They gave us money towards our lovely gate system, which has kept our property cleaner and, the use of illicit drugs off our property, and unfortunately, moved it somewhere else. We also got a grant from the city of Winnipeg. That was our, what was that one, the 25,000, Sandy?
It's a rebate from the city because they charged us too much.
Yes. So again, this would have been impacted prior years. They saw the building not rated as we saw rated, which is we are 51% low-income housing, so we get certain credits. So our property tax should have been lower, so we paid it up out front, and now we got it back. So again, it's a one-off. We also got a wonderful gift, which was I over-accrued. Accrued means I think a big expense is going to come. That's what the terminology means. That bill did not come, but I planned for it. Over-planned for it, I guess. So we got a wonderful gift of getting that money back. So it just crossed years. Our next item was window well capping. We know how important it is to maintain a building, how expensive it is. We have been blessed, truly blessed and a little bit lucky in the fact that we had a $380,000 insurance claim. That insurance claim put a brand new roof over the nave. We then decided to roof over the choir and sacristy at the same time. We got a whole new paint job. We also painted the beams and repaired probably decades worth of plaster. It looks beautiful in here. We are very lucky. If we didn't have that gift, we're in a tough spot. And maintaining the stewardship of these buildings, it's such a difficult thing to do, and it's hard work when we're a small parish. But we're growing. So I want to talk about what we're seeing in terms of growth. I thought, or I budgeted, seeing how COVID affected so many people and parishes, that we continue to slip. As people die, typically the people that are older have the ability to give generous gifts, more than someone, say, in their 20s and 30s and 40s that have time, that sweat equity. It's those pillars we talk about during our stewardship campaign: time, talent, and treasure. At different points in our own personal stories, we have different abilities to give in different layers. So I thought with COVID, we had two generations, or generations falling off, but we didn't have the ability to grow. We were closed. And now that we're open and we're vibrant, people are seeking us out, or we're creating things that people are drawn to us. And we're starting to see that backfill of great energy. And that energy was actually far more than I expected. And also in this next year's budget, again, I'm more conservative because I think it's important to be conservative when presenting you your financials and how our health looks. That again, I see positive momentum, but new bodies don't always mean dollars on the plate. One thing I absolutely forgot to leave out in my notes at the bottom to truly reflect kind of almost like the cash that went out is we have a 60-year land lease. So if people don't know what that is, we had to be bought out of our property at the tune of 1.7 something million. Now we front-loaded that gift because it allowed us to then also contribute our share into the project. But with that comes a paper trail of money. Because you don't just get $1.7 million and it just, no, it was over 60 years that gift is given to us. So there's actually another $30,000 you can take off. So our true running of this parish was a deficit of $48,000. So when I say we're healthy, and we've been given many gifts that we didn't have to pay for, we're not in an easy street. And that brings me to the point I was trying to make on page If you go to the variance notes in the balance sheet, if someone could call that out for me, 33 at the very bottom. I also want to talk about this story. For years, we were not healthy cash-wise. We'd received gifts from people that are no longer with us. And they said, I'm giving you this money so you can do different projects. I one day want to see you guys replace this carpet. I want to support building a Sunday school that's vibrant. We want to help you deal with the furnaces when you have to do that massive project, which is a big number too. People that say, I love the organ. I want to give you money towards that organ. Stained glass, all these things, they're on there. These were restricted gifts. We didn't have the cash until that building was made, because we then became a little cash healthy. But we're not that healthy. We're still fighting tooth and nail, which is why we need you to talk to your friends and family and share what we're doing here. Share what the body of Christ is doing here. So, if I add up all these restricted accounts, everything that we can't spend on heating the building, or we shouldn't spend on heating the building like we've done in the past, is $67,000. We have $670,000 that is not endowed, which means it's not restricted. So it's going to be applied to help support those restricted funds. It leaves us $600,000. And as my note says, wow, we're doing well. We're not when we go back to page 1 and I say, we burned through $50,000 of cash. And if we add that to being proper stewards of this building, that's the hard work. We can just exist here, but if we don't take care of it, we're going to be in similar positions with other parishes where they just say, we can't afford to be here anymore, and we have to close. Or we have to make hard decisions on outreach, on ministers, on secretaries, administrators, whatever it is, music. Everything gets cut until it's bare bones, and what's left? Then what is the point of doing any of it? So, the $600,000, it's buying us time to right the ship. And the wonderful thing, I don't want to be doom and gloom, but these are stats, is that we're on the right path. Rob is doing a wonderful job. We have wonderful leadership in place. We have a wonderful vestry. We have wonderful parishioners, and we're growing, and it's exciting. It's exciting by the fact that we're 70-odd people here today. A year ago, we would have been probably 50. This is exciting. And don't be afraid, and I'm not an evangelist, to proclaim it. Share it. I hate the door knockers and all that. But there's nothing wrong with sharing with your friend. Come to that one even song. Come to that special Sunday morning service and just see what we do. And it might touch them. It might make them relate. Feel welcomed. Feel a place like that's home. So many people that come in and love our community that's growing is our Black community. And they say, this is like at home. And that's amazing that we're doing that for people. So I'm not going to go through every single line, because that is not what I think finances are about. You know, these are just details. I wanted to paint the big picture, but point out the positives of our growth. And what else do I want to highlight for you guys? One of our big things, and this is a strategic choice by your finance team, is you'll see on page 30, why are we not taking as much of our endowment as we can? Again, finances, investments, they kind of tanked at the beginning of 2023. This was a strategic move to let that cash sit and grow, and we could take the cash out of other investments or liquid cash to support operations. We did not want to dilute what could possibly grow for us and take it low. So that was about a $10,000 variance. Another important one is, you might see in your donations general on page 30, holy smokes, we got $11,000 more than budgeted. Well, that relates back to the gate, that $8,000 gift. You might go, whoa, we spent way less on that travel. That was Rob's over-accrual coming back. I made him boo-boo on page 31. I did bad budgeting. So that $4,000 we were short on the benefits for admin and Mark. Oops, sorry, my bad. You might say organ maintenance. What are you guys doing? You spent $3,000 over. That wasn't over, that was a gift in kind. Gift in kinds, many people do it here. They say, I'm going to buy or get something for the church. Don't give me the cash back, but just give me a receipt. So they get a receipt, that is revenue, and the expense goes to whatever the expense was. So it's an in and an out. No cash effect. I really have nothing else exciting about the current year. I'll open the floor to questions. Doesn't seem like.
Does this work? Oh, good. If you want to go up to the top of the page.
Summary page or which page?
The top.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah, I do appreciate all the detail that John's giving us. A lot of hard work for him. But if you go up a little further, go the other way.
Okay.
Or down. Okay. This is just a cosmetic issue. The description at the top of the page, it says for the month of December. I think that should be for the year ended in December 31.
That is correct, because
Okay.
that is our year end.
Okay, that's all. I appreciate all your work, but that's just a little cosmetic issue.
What is this? What universe do I live in where that's the curveball that I get from Robin? That was a soft pitch. Wow. Wonderful. So again, this is your data. If you guys have the reports, I hope you read them, but unless you're an accountant and you're very familiar with it, it can be very confusing. Please ask me questions. If you're saying, why is this line so high? What's in it? Because inside of these lines are many, many things. So inside of our parish life, well, that's picnics, that's hospitality, that's the food boxes. There's lots of things that go on inside of lines. So any questions, come see me. I can explain it, or right now.
I was just wondering, for the coming year, how much do you think the deficit will go down a little bit in terms of how?
So we'll see that in the next in the proposed budget. So I just like to close the finances. These will be going to our auditors for then review. It does get better though.
Sorry, John, would you like to move the approval of the financial
So I move the
statements?
approval of the financial statements with the correction for the year ended December 31st.
Is there a seconder? Thank you, Jocelyn. I think I can just go straight on to all in favor. Thank you.
All opposed? I think
Financial
that's enough.
statements are approved. All those opposed? Any opposed? I think it's unanimous. Thank you, it's approved.
Okay. We'll now move to the budget. That is page 41 in your booklet, if you wish to follow along. All right, so for our budget, you're probably saying we had better numbers last year. Why aren't you projecting greater growth? Again, we saw some of our parishioners die. Those people that are in that life cycle of the parish can typically be larger givers. So I just like to plan that some of that might not be fully replaced. If it does, that's gravy, and that does help then with any deficit at the bottom. It doesn't mean, oh, we got some more money, we're going to spend more money. It just makes the picture look better. There is nothing grand and exciting that we're planning to do here, at least nothing that is jumping out. One gift we did give to St. Benedict's was we held their rent. They are wonderful stewards of this place with us. So they needed some time to get their finances in order. So we did not follow the contract, which would have suggested a diocesan increase to their rent. We kept that flat, and they said if they're in a better spot by the end of the year, they would try to provide a bit of support to the number that should have been paid. One wonderful thing you'll see is that West Broadway Commons continues to be a wonderful mechanism as our life preserver. In 2024, we're projecting $115,000 revenue stream from them, and there actually could be some uptick to that, but again, to be conservative and just present numbers that are real, we don't want to bank on something because we always know something can happen. That building's now about 4 years old, and you just never know when something might go with that system that has to be fed or cared for first as good stewards of that building. There's no surprises really on our expense side. Everything for Rob is by the book. We appreciate that he continued. Oh, Carl. Yes. So actually that was one of the lines I was going to kind of comment on. So with Rob, it's all pretty straightforward. As we go into our expenses below, again, if we focus on, let's see, Carl was wanting to know about professional fees. It used to be around this $5,000 mark, which was typically just our review and a couple other things. Well, one with the new building, we still have our review we have to do with the accountants. We also have to do the annual returns for the building next door, the numbered company that technically owns next door. Also the tax return for the numbered company that technically owns next door. We also have different things going on. Sandy mentioned the stained glass. Well, we had people in to properly give them value, an assessment of their condition. We also have an ongoing insurance review. Are we properly insured? Big pieces are the stained glass, the organ, and the building proper. So in that 13,000, or what number is it? Which it's the 11,000, is allowances, accruals, guesstimates for that kind of work. So as we age in the building and we want to do things properly, we want to bring in third-party opinions because we don't want to be caught. I won't say with my pants down. Oh wait, I did. Yeah, so just budgeting for all these different things. If we go down, you'll see the photocopier expense went down. Again, if I look at other parishes, they're making hard decisions. An easy one for us was, we can't afford color every week. It's beautiful, but it's expensive. You know, it can be about $1,000 more a year. It's nice to have these things, but you'd rather have other things than the pretty things. Let's continue to do good work, and then those little perks and the color on top of it gets to come later. Go ahead. So that is, now in the AGM last year, Robin wanted this split. There is a sub-GL that shows high interest income. It's just, I don't want to have 1,000 lines presented at one time. So inside of this number is high interest income coming from our GICs when they mature, income coming from our capital endowment, so that's restricted, money coming from our endowment fund, which is also restricted, and just revenue coming through anything we have invested that can support our church. So that's just an in and out. So amortization, again, is one of these paper entries. We are in a, well, let's just, actually, no, I'm not going to flip that again. There is a page here on page 40. And this is what the church was bought at market value or improvements made over the years. You have to amortize it. This is not an expense in the year it's built. It is amortized over the lifetime of the asset. So that is what the deferred is. Yeah, so it just reduces your balance sheet asset slowly. For example, the organ is over like 25 years, and then it has to show an expense. So kind of like that land lease, just paper, movement, balance sheet, expense, but again, not a true cash transaction. Okay, here's an important item. Our apportionment, our mission and ministry. This parish has not been in the position to provide what it should to the diocese. Like I said, the diocese is operating under an approved budget of a $300,000 shortfall. And that's because they're honoring their pledge to the national church. And what feeds the national church? The diocese. Who feeds the diocese? The parishes. Parishes are shrinking, parishes are closing, and if we have been given gifts, we need to continue to support that ministry. Do you have a comment? You're good? It's just important that we get to where we should be. This number is nowhere close of where we should be. Like, it probably should be almost triple that number if we were to be playing fairly to everyone. There's other churches, Holy Trinity, they made a hard decision. They cut $20,000 of their apportionment because they made other very difficult decisions this year too. So it's a positive thing that the diocese can see us and other parishes can see us as growing and doing our part in the grand story of the Anglican Church here in Winnipeg. And then briefly, unfortunately, you can see, or not unfortunately, I should not phrase it that way, our outreach, what we've provided them to do the great work they're doing has shrunk just because they're in a transition year of finding out what their new mission is, or what is their mission defined by the group of people that are here today. So that was a little bit of a restriction on where we've been in the past. Is there any other questions? Corey? So the comment was, it was a... So if you can't hear the comment from an outreach member was, that cut hurt. That cut was difficult to them. They didn't feel maybe validated in the work they were doing. And I'll just rephrase this with how I've started the whole story. A lot of parishes are making a lot of hard decisions. It doesn't mean the work that has been done is not valid. It doesn't mean that, oh, we want a full-time priest so we can support our parishioners and do home visits. They just can't. And unfortunately, when I'm still, or we as a finance team in Vestry have approved a $32,000 deficit, we just have to continue to just tweaking and finding, just stabilize us until we can get our numbers up. And the fact that we're up, whatever 20 over 50 is massive. So stack another year of growth on that, and another year of growth on that. Within 2-3 years, we could be at a neutral deficit. Imagine that. And then what you can do is you can go, okay, we've now got the gifts, we've now got the people, we've restabilized our planting. Now let's make our priorities, because we actually have some flexibility. Like, what's $1,000? Well, $1,000 is a lot when you're saying you can cut photocopier costs. You know, I'm getting creative. I personally, I don't know if you check out your bulletins, but Border Brokers is the company that I'm the CFO, and I said, I'm directing donations to this parish to support our photocopying costs, but just throw in our name in the bulletin. So there's $3,000 of new money. Take $3,000 off of this, we're creeping up to 35. Then we're creeping up to 34 with color paper. We match what we did for outreach. We're now at 40 again. It can just escalate that quickly. We have to be good stewards. And back to our theme of this year, you're home at All Saints. You have tough decisions that you make at home. When you want to spend, what you can fix. Are you going to buy fruit this week because it's expensive? Are you going to buy this or that? Can you give a donation to that wonderful charity? They're hard decisions. And we have to make those same choices here at our home at All Saints. Any other questions about the budget? Well, first step is we, as the finance team, have allocated funds every year that we allocate to different projects, different priorities. Coonley will provide, and others will provide their direction on what they feel are the highest priorities. You know, having a stained glass fall over and what, you know, it's probably worth $500,000 or something, potentially, and crash is a priority. So it's ever changing. Is there a plan in place? Not yet, because we're trying to get the professionals in to help give us a plan. But when different things come up, absolutely. We will probably come with you with stories and creative ways that you can support things. You know, we might have another run of, do you support a window? That's how we put the Lexan on a good 15 to 20 years ago. So absolutely, there will be exciting things that we will engage this parish in things that are attractive to you. You might not be interested in the organ, but you might be interested in stained glass. You might be interested in stained glass, but you love bringing food to go out for the outreach program. So you get a choice. There's so many things we can go into. Sometime in the future, I would suggest. Okay, I move. If all questions, I close questions. I move the adoption of the 2024 budget as presented.
A seconder?
Yeah.
Jocelyn? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. The motion is carried. Thank you, John, for an excellent presentation of
And one last item of business is, this will be my last year as your treasurer. I will not leave this parish in the lurch. Kind of what Robin did with me, I think about 7 years ago, was build a junior treasurer, just to start handing over. There's reasons why there's terms on things. It creates new energy. It creates a different look at how you're doing the process. Different controls. So it's a positive thing to have a bit of change or a gap in term. I have the full confidence that the corporation has enjoyed my work for the last 7-ish years. I know the congregation, I think, appreciates the effort, but it's just time to have a change. So, thank you.
Thank you, John. Just before we go to the investment report, I am happy to announce, thank you, Lorraine and Gloria, for counting, that all 12 of our candidates for election have been elected by an extremely wide margin. So, for better or for worse, you're all part of leadership now, all 12 of you, and thank you. Now I will turn it to Jocelyn, investment report.
I just want to thank John for his wonderful way of explaining what could be a complicated, bunch of numbers on a page. I mean, I'm familiar with that kind of thing, but I know it's overwhelming when you look at all these numbers and why are some of them this way and sorry, some of them that way. John, you've done a fabulous job. I don't know how we're going to replace you at the moment, but you know, Robin did a fabulous job. We didn't know how we'd replace him either. So there we are. So, thank you very much. Our investments continue to thrive. It has been a tumultuous year globally with all kinds of different things going on, whether it was climate things, fires, wars, you know, just completely unexpected things. And markets are a strange animal. They react emotionally, which is funny for something that's all about numbers and, you know, that kind of thing. But they're extremely emotional, and they get really touchy if something happens somewhere or somebody promises there's going to be a rate cut and there isn't. But fortunately, things have steadied out this year in a fairly good way. There were some dips through the year, but we have recovered nicely with our earnings in the portfolios we have. We crafted them to withstand as many shocks as we could. So they're fairly modest and low risk. That's the principle, especially when it's a fiduciary responsibility. It's not my money that I'm investing, it's all of our money and for the future. And so we are extremely careful that what we do with our investment policy is not only taking care of the future, but also honoring God's creation. We try not to involve ourselves in anything that could be considered harmful to the environment. Gambling, weapons, you know, all those kinds of things are absolutely off the board. So I say to our advisor, and she understands, she's a church-going gal too, so she gets it. So she draws up a plan for us that she works very closely with the mutual fund companies and says, this is a church, these are the parameters we have to follow, which is terrific. So we can be assured that we are investing in things that are in line with our own kind of standards. That being said, we had a much better year. There's only one fund that is still slightly in the red. It will recover too. It's mostly just because of when we put the money in. Market timing is this other complicated science that usually doesn't work. And so you put the money in and we sank down. Partly a pandemic thing, partly a quantitative easing, partly all the other things. So we've got one fund that's still slightly under. All of the others have recovered and are showing good gains. We actually had close to just over $58,000 of income that we could have taken last year. We budgeted 45. We ended up taking only about 34 in income instead of taking the full amount. If we don't have to take that full amount, as John was alluding to, let it stay in the investments and keep on growing there, because it adds to the growth. You just are compounding your returns if you keep it in there instead of drawing it all out. So we've budgeted a fairly modest amount this year. We don't quite know what the markets are going to do. Of course, none of us have a crystal ball. But one thing we have been able to do, and this has been of interest to me particularly, was changing the terms of our trust documents that govern our endowment and capital maintenance funds. Those are the two that are restricted, and they have actual trust documents that say who's supposed to be on the trust committee, how we take the money, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we've been able to amend them so that we don't have to have on the committee our lawyer, our outside financial representative. Who was the third person? It was like 7 people that were supposed to be on there. So we've reduced it to saying that we can bring in those people as experts, but not that they are required to be on our administration committee as trustees. So that has helped the flexibility of the finance committee. The other thing is we have been able to change the terms of how we take income. So this is something you apply to court to have these changes made to Court of King's Bench, I assume. And the changes will be made legal. They've all been drafted. They've been approved by finance. Means that we can take money as it is earned, but we don't have to take it all in any one year. And Robin, just out of interest's sake, I found that the endowment fund had actually been amended in 2007, I believe it was. So we were actually on side the whole time. So we weren't doing anything that was in contravention with our trust documents. I know it's very arcane kind of talking, but we want to make sure that we are responsible with the money that we're given, that's been entrusted to us, and make sure that we have it for the future as well. So I'm pleased that not only are the investments producing what we need them to produce, but also that we've been able to change some of these rather restrictive documents so that we can have flexibility, not to be careless with it. That's not it. But just it gives us a flexibility that we don't have to take all the income in any one year. Any questions at this point? I see none. That's good.
And Jocelyn, we do not need to approve this report because it was one of the reports listed earlier and received officially by the community. So thank you so much, and thank you for all the work you do on this. It's wonderful. We're nearing the end. The next item is to appoint our reviewers for our financial statements for 2024. And John, I would just ask you to stand and make that motion.
I move that we again use the sheet for our annual review of the 2023 financials.
And Yana, would you like to second this? You were trying to second a number of financial things. Thank you. Any comments, questions, concerns? Chris? I will repeat the motion, which is a motion to choose MNP, Myers Norris Penny, as our accountants or reviewers for 2024 for the financial statements. John moved it, Yana seconded it, and I was just asking for any questions or concerns. Louis, did you have something or no? Did you have a question or a concern, Louis? Yeah. Okay, I think I can ask for all in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. And then the second or third to last item is there any new business? Are there any items you wish to raise that should be referred to corporation or vestry? Any general questions? We leave this to last at a very long meeting, assuming that everybody is so tired that it looks like there are no comments or questions. Now I have one other thing I'd like to do, which is just a couple of thanks before we terminate the meeting. The first is, again, a thank you to Margaret and the Van Benthams and everybody who brought wonderful food for this lunch and enticed everybody to stay. And then there's somebody to thank who most of you may not know is here, but Dana is upstairs babysitting the kids while we have this meeting. And then I just have to do this. Thanks to Father Rob for a wonderful first full year at All Saints. Now I would entertain a motion for termination. There, Carl and Mark won. You can put either name down, whichever you want, Secretary. But before we leave, Barbara Shrubsky, would you say a closing prayer for us?
I'm going to say this prayer in the language that I was brought up in, and it's Cree. And when we tell the other Indigenous group that the Cree comes from the Creator, they're not happy with us. Let us pray. Nutawina Stivisio Kaya and Stegin in us Mitnanama Gavichiakanas. Stegin in us Mitnanago and Sino with the Gavita Tate. Igamina Kinas Mitnana. Father Rob, Gamina Carl, Gamna Nina, Tatutamak, Gagakunageo, Excrete Tamak. Sweaty Missinans to Mandu, Sweaty Missinans to Mandu, Sweaty Missinans to Mandu, Sweaty Missinans to Mandu. Amen.